Massachusetts, the St. Patrick's Day celebrations were still in full swing in the early hours of March 18th. Two guards, 23-year-old Ricky Abeth and 25-year-old Randy Hestand, were clocked in for $6.85 an hour at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum of Art. It was Hestand's first shift, and aside from a few fire and smoke detectors going off for no reason earlier in the evening, the night had gone pretty smoothly. The museum had opened in 1903 to show off the millionaire Isabella and her late husband's art collection, approximately 16,000 pieces sourced from all over the world during their travels, including 3,000 rare books and 7,500 paintings like The Story of Lucretia by Botticelli. Gardner died in 1924, and in her will, it was specified that the museum's holdings couldn't be rearranged, sold, or significantly added to, or the property would go to Harvard. By the 1980s, endowment funds were running low, so the museum was not only strapped for cash, but had terrible security infrastructure. There were no cameras inside, guards could only summon police by pressing a lone button at their desk, and unlike at other museums, there were no required hourly calls to call the police. Instead, all the guards were required to do was make hourly solo walks around the building, where infrared motion sensors tracked and recorded their movements. The other guard was to be at the desk with his walkie-talkie. On this evening of St. Patrick's Day revelry in 1990, a few partygoers would report seeing two police officers outside of the building at 12:30 a.m. In the museum, meanwhile, after midnight at some point, Abeth briefly opened a side entrance to the museum and quickly shut it. He then switched duties with Hestand at 1 a.m. Shortly before 1:24 a.m., two men dressed as police sought entry into the building from a side entrance with a surveillance camera, reporting that they were investigating a disturbance. Abeth, a former student at Berklee College of Music who would later say he sometimes came to work drunk or high, but not on this night in particular, buzzed them in. The fake police told the guard, according to the guard, mind you, to provide ID, and when he came from behind the desk to hand it over, he was told, "This is a robbery," and got handcuffed. When Hestand returned to the desk, he was also handcuffed. Now, neither guard had access to the button at the desk. They were blinded with duct tape and led to the basement by the thieves without needing instruction on how to navigate there. 24 to 26 minutes after the thieves entered the building, they finally ascended the main staircase into the museum and began carefully stealing 12 works of art from the Dutch room and the short gallery, trimming paintings from their frames. These included Rembrandt's only known seascape, The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his painting A Lady and Gentleman in Black, and a piece called The Concert, one of 34 known paintings by Johannes Vermeer. The seascape had been hung on a fake wall that was actually a door, but the thieves removed it by easily opening the door, suggesting to police that this was an inside job. They also took a few items that weren't worth much, and unsuccessfully tried to remove a Napoleonic flag, instead taking an eagle statue attached to it. Their total take was worth $200 to $600 million at the time. Meanwhile, more expensive art, like The Rape of Europa, a 16th century piece by Titian, was left behind.
I think that's very clear. If you look at the photographs, you can see these are 17th century Dutch paintings and 19th century French works. They left the Italian Renaissance collection, which is really what we're best known for. We are unusual in that we are a permanent collection, so we do not buy or sell works of art, so we really are not concerned with their monetary value in that they are priceless in our eyes.
While most art robberies and robberies in general are short, the Isabella Stewart Art Museum heist was a puzzling 81 minutes. The thieves could have stolen more and better valued art, but didn't. And remember how I said they stole 12 pieces from 2 rooms? A 13th piece, a small Manet called Chez Tortoni, was stolen from the Blue Room, which the infrared sensors never recorded anyone entering, except Abeth earlier in the night. It had been cut from its frame like the others, but its frame had been left at the front desk.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
The thieves took the videotapes from the surveillance camera at the entrance and finally left at 2:45 a.m. The guards were found tied up in the basement later in the morning. Police generated 2 theories that overlapped. Ricky Abeth was in on it and/or the Irish Mafia had been the culprits. For starters, the faux cops had called the guards mates when putting them in the basement, which was popular Irish slang. Secondly, the fire detector alarms going off earlier in the night was a common tactic employed by the IRA overseas. And mob boss Whitey Bugler had cop connections, meaning that he could get uniforms and he had relations to the IRA. Multiple other Boston Mafia angles were pursued, but no suspects were arrested and the case remained unsolved. The frames where the paintings hung remained in place. In 1994, the museum director received a letter from a person claiming to be a third-party mediator and offered to attempt to return the art. The writer said the art was protected in a non-common law country and advised the museum to print a coded message in the Boston Globe if they wanted to proceed. The museum director contacted the FBI, who analyzed that the writer knew pertinent details only those closest to the case knew. So the Globe printed a coded message on May 1st, 1994. Within days, a second letter was sent to the museum director, but the writer was now nervous about going forward and reneged. No more letters ever came. A $10 million reward issued by the museum didn't yield any results. Fast forward to 2013, when the statute of limitations had long run out. The FBI announced that it believed the art was transported to Connecticut and the Philadelphia region, and some of the art was taken to Philadelphia where it was offered for sale. 2 years later, in August 2015, they released footage of a car that matched the description of the thieves' vehicle parked outside of the museum, exactly 24 hours prior to the robbery. And guess who they were talking to? You guessed it, Ricky Abeth. He claimed to not remember this, and it turned out the man in the tape was the museum's deputy director of security. Abeth died earlier this year. Shortly after the footage was released, the FBI announced they believed to know who the thieves were, both low-level mob associates who were dead. Their identities weren't revealed, I guess to continue to try to pursue the lost art, which has never popped up.